Hello, this is our review of Predator 2, and if you haven't already, check out our review of the first Predator movie, which obviously I'm going to put up before this one. Now, Predator 2 came out in 1990. The film, of course, is a sequel to the 1987 horror action film Predator. Now, Predator 2 was directed by Stephen Hopkins, not Hawkins, but Hopkins. Stephen Hopkins, before this, directed A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, and he would also go on to direct Lost in Space, and he directed that movie Race, which came out, I think, last year. Now, the film is written by Jim Thomas and John Thomas, who also wrote the first film. Now, Predator 2, this is kind of a polarizing movie. Some people love it, and some people absolutely hate it. Like, the movie actually gets, like, I don't really pay that much attention to Rotten Tomatoes, but it actually has, like, a 25% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Well, whoever voted that, you're wrong. Like, completely.
Yeah, because
not that bad.
Yeah, because, well, I definitely think the first one's better. I think this is a pretty decent sequel, honestly.
I would agree with that. I like Predator 2. I don't think it's as good as the original.
No, definitely not.
But the original was like catching lightning in a bottle, you know, and you just can't recreate that magic.
But what I like about this one is how it doesn't try to repeat the first one. It's in a different location. Yep. And also, they do kind of expand a lot more on the Predator mythos, I think. Yeah. Like, this is kind of a spoiler, but at the end, when Harrigan is in the alien spaceship and he sees that trophy case of all the skulls of these different creatures that the Predators have been hunting throughout time, and you see a dinosaur skull, implying that the Predators have been coming here even during the time of the dinosaurs, and then you see the Xenomorph skull, implying that this is also set in the same universe as Aliens, obviously set, like, years and years before Alien, but you get what I mean, like the whole idea that it's in the same universe.
Basically,
Which I'm actually not sure if the Aliens vs. Predator comic books came before or after this movie, because I know there were Predator comics after the first movie, but before this film, so maybe that's something they were taken from the comics. Like,
possibly was something, because usually when something as big as Predator and Alien, and they do make that attempt to kind of bridge it, like, maybe they're probably the logic behind the studio was they were going to make this implication that the Predator and Alien are in the same universe.
Yeah.
And try to get people excited about that. But the problem was that Predator 2 wasn't as well received as the first one, you know?
Yeah, and
they were expecting another Predator, basically, and that didn't happen.
And I remember when I first saw this movie as a little kid, and this was before Aliens, or Alien vs. Predator came out, and I see the Xenomorph skull in the case, and I'm like, ah! Like, you know, I started fangirling out over that.
I actually saw Predator 2 after Aliens vs. Predator, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I didn't know Predator 2 was a thing. And I didn't know that was a thing for the longest time. And then when I was looking at I was just browsing through. I was looking at my local rental movie place, and I was browsing through. I'm like, Predator 2, that's a thing. What?
You know, I actually probably should have brought this up in our review of the first movie, but I did actually kind of see this movie before the first one.
Oh, really?
But I didn't know what it was. Like, I remember seeing this on I remember seeing this once on TV when I was a little kid. Then years later, my aunt introduced me to the first film, and then after that, I saw Predator 2. I'm like, oh, I did see Predator 2 before. And, like, I should have noticed when I was watching the first one that, oh, it's the same type of creature I saw in that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That had to be pretty interesting.
I don't know.
That's a way of going about it.
Yeah. But, once again, I enjoy this film quite a bit. I think the acting is really good in the movie. Danny Glover, who plays Harrigan in the film, awesome in this movie. And Harrigan's a really awesome character. He's like this real hard-ass cop, and what I like about it is, it's kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but he's almost not the kind of person you could see going up against the Predator.
To me, what I loved about it, because what I loved about Danny Glover in this movie is because when I first watched it, I've already saw Lethal Weapon going into it. When I first saw this movie, I'm like, oh, he's doing a Mel Gibson, Martin Riggs impression. He's basically playing a sane version of Martin Riggs, in my opinion.
Okay.
That's his character in Predator 2. And I'm like, connection, because, during the Lethal Weapon series, Danny Glover's like, I'm too old for this shit. And Martin Riggs is like, the hell are you talking, And seeing Danny Glover actually play the Martin Riggs type of character is really funny to me.
Okay. Yeah.
A little parallel I just created because I'm just insane, but
yeah, and I do. There is some definite humor in this movie, like the scene where the Predator crashes through the bathroom wall of that apartment, and then Harrigan is chasing after it, and then there's that old lady, that stereotypical old lady
who looks at the craziness and just like, huh?
Yeah, and then when freaking Harrigan comes in and she screams, it's like, it's alright, ma'am, I'm a cop. And she's like, I don't think he gives a shit. Which is kind of realistic, because you see something like that, it's like, I don't think that thing is going to give a shit that you're a cop.
Some of the jokes work, like that one. Other jokes in this movie kind of fall on their butt.
I don't think so. I think it all works.
No, that one specifically, that one worked for me, but others I was just... seeing it again as an adult, I found it funny when I first watched it, but now, I'm like...
Now, the plot of Predator 2 is, it's set in the year 1997. The movie came out in 1990, but it's supposed to be set 7 years in the future, and it's set in Los Angeles, in this, almost near-futuristic Los Angeles, where crime is at, an all-time high. It's almost supposed to be, a dystopic version of Los Angeles, if, Los Angeles was, Gotham City or something, or Detroit.
Detroit. Sorry, Detroit. We love you, but you're getting better. Just saying.
Yeah.
But
but once again, the film's set in the not-too-distant future. It's actually set exactly 10 years after the first movie took place, and basically it follows this cop named Harrigan, played by Danny Glover, who, in the beginning of the film, he's involved with, basically there are these huge gang wars going on between, these Colombian drug gangs and these voodoo gangs, and basically, honestly, the way it begins, it's kind of like the first one, how the first one began like a war movie, kind of. This is beginning almost like a futuristic crime drama, and honestly, all this stuff about the Rastafarian gang and the Colombian drug lords, that could have been its own movie. But basically, long story short, a Predator ends up coming into this setting, and the Predator starts killing off members of both the Colombian gang and the Rastafarian gang, and now Harrigan is investigating these murders, and he eventually discovers that these murders are being committed by an alien creature, and eventually meets a character named Peter Keyes, played by Gary Busey, who knows about the Predator because of the events that happened in the first film. And that's the basic plot line of Predator 2.
Yeah, it's basically kind of like a Danny Glover kind of discovers. It's not like, oh, I just discovered this,
Yeah.
That's kind of like the whole plot of the... it's basically like how the plot is developed. Danny Glover finding evidence and just figuring out what the hell's going on.
Yeah, and
for most of the movie, he's like, what is going on?
Yeah, what I like about it is it's almost like a detective thriller mixed in with sci-fi horror action and kind of like a futuristic crime drama. And kind of a dystopian kind of story as well.
It's more modern day. It's basically like a modern day, not nowadays modern days, but during modern days of the 90s,
Or the future of the 90s.
The future of the because I feel like, just to clarify, it's not like futuristic where it's like Blade Runner type of futuristic.
No, it's set only 7 years in the future, but it's definitely, I would say, for the time, was probably a realistic take on, maybe this is how Los Angeles, bad Los Angeles could get.
How it could be at one point, and then we just throw a Predator in there, because why not?
Yeah, but I like that. I like how it kind of starts out as its whole a whole different movie, but then they drop the Predator in there. Kind of like how the first movie starts out like a war movie, but they just drop the Predator
in there. Yeah, it works. It definitely works because it doesn't grip. I would make the argument that this story doesn't really grip you as much as the first one.
Yeah,
but it's still effective enough, and I think the movie overall is entertaining enough where it is worth it. You know?
And what I also like is they don't just repeat the first one.
Yeah, they actually do kind of try to do something a little bit different with the material, having it take place in a city instead of a forest. It's basically just focused on one character, and he's actually physically investigating, the events that are happening, and then discover the Predator.
And also the fact that you don't really. Yeah. He's not the kind of person who you can see going up against something like the Predator. Like he's almost like just a normal guy he's kind of thrown into this impossible situation.
Yeah, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, you kind of get a vibe that he could...
Yeah, because Arnold Schwarzenegger has a very larger-than-life presence about him, and the character of Dutch is this very larger-than-life kind of guy.
Yeah.
Harrigan is much more of... I don't want to say the everyman, because he still deals with a lot of...
Blue-collar, would you say?
Yeah, probably, but he's not like...
But he doesn't have like the physical presence that Arnold Schwarzenegger has, so... I feel the Predator feels more threatening to a character like Hagen instead of Dutch, you know? And I think that plays well in this movie.
And as we mentioned before, this film also expands a little bit more on the Predator mythos.
Yes.
Like you actually, this is kind of a spoiler as well, but you do see more Predators at the end of the film, and the fact that they kind of establish that xenomorphs exist in this universe, like implying that this is in the same universe as the Alien franchise.
Yeah, the Ridley Scott films.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, he only directed the first one, and then Prometheus later on, but...
He was the creator. He started the whole shebang.
Yeah. But once again, I recommend Predator 2. I think it's a damn good sequel. Not as good as the first one, but I think it does its job really well.
I would recommend it. It leans more toward a good movie, in my opinion. I can sort of see the people not liking it though.
I can't say. I think anybody who doesn't like this is wrong, and they deserve to be trapped on the Predator's homeworld. I
would agree to an extent. I could still see some things that are wrong with it. I just feel like it I don't know. It's hard to say really, because for me it's one of those movies that has some really awesome visual moments.
Okay.
Like just certain scenes just stick with you, and then the rest of it is kind of flat and uninteresting. Honestly,
I don't agree with that, but then again, that's your opinion, though.
I found the cops when Glover is investigating the Predator stuff, that was interesting. When he was investigating the criminals and the Predator stuff, but the generic cop stuff, it sets up okay, but then it kind of drags out, I think, a little bit.
I don't agree. Middle. I think I like the other characters, like Bill Paxton's.
Well, the characters are fine. I'm talking about the plot. Right. I felt like they, the stuff with Glover and the boss. The typical '80s movies where he gets yelled at by his boss.
Yeah.
Because they can't stop. They don't know what they're doing for a little while. I thought that was. I felt that kind of dragged a little bit, would you say?
Okay. I don't know. I don't agree. Once again, I love the movie, so,
I love it too. I'm just saying, I feel like it does... It's a little bit, it gets a little bit slow, a little bit in the middle, but once things start hitting the fan, that's when it gets good, especially once the investigation starts. And there's some great moments too, like the hotel scene.
Yeah,
I think it really plays...
And I actually do want to bring that up, is in the hotel scene, after the aftermath of that, when they find the girlfriend of that one guy who was about to be killed by the voodoo gang and all that.
One of the best parts of the movie.
Actually was killed by the voodoo gang, but then the Predator came and killed them. When they find his girlfriend, she mentions that the devil came for them. I liked how in this movie
It's a nice little nod. Yeah.
certain characters think that the Predator is the devil, kind of a throwback to how in the first one, the one woman who was with Dutch's group kind of thought that the Predator was a demon, so I kind of liked the little throwback to the first one. And like the whole idea of this almost mystical aspect of the Predator. You know, you as the audience know it's an alien, but certain characters, for all they know, it's a demon or the devil himself, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it basically does like two throwbacks to the original, the one with the devil reference and the reference of the Predator strangling people up. I thought that was more creepy and more effective in this movie, actually, than the original, believe it or not. I thought that was, the hotels, that hotel scene is one of my favorite scenes in that movie. That and the alleyway and the ending, of course.
It's... Once again, I recommend it. I
would recommend it too.
Yeah, if you're a fan of the first one and you haven't seen this one, definitely check it out.
If you're a fan of the mythos, I think you would like Predator 2. I don't know, just generic moviegoers, just generic people. I don't know if you like the original. I think you would like it, but it seems pretty polarizing, like you said. So I would recommend it though. I think it's a good watch. Well, I think it's solid.
Yeah. Well, okay. I know I probably like this a little more than you did, but do you think this movie deserves the 25% it gets on Rotten Tomatoes?
Not at all. There are movies out there that are way worse than Predator 2, believe me. Like, Batman vs. Superman, Man of Steel doesn't deserve, like, the extremely low ratings that it got. And, I have my opinions on that too, but those are movies that would... Predator 2 falls under that kind of criticism where I don't think it's fairly justified. It's a better movie than people make it. The opposing opinion, I think, I think they're wrong. I don't agree with them.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with some points, but I think it's really, really nitpicky stuff. Yeah. And I think if that is the only criticism that you have, like really, really nitpicky stuff, and the rest of it, is actually really good, which it is, you're wrong.
I think maybe one of the reasons why this one didn't do so well with a lot of audiences and critics is maybe they were expecting just a repeat of the first one. Maybe they wanted Arnold Schwarzenegger to be in this, which actually originally he was going to be in this. Like,
I did hear that.
The character of Peter Keyes, who's played by Gary Busey in the movie, he was originally going to be Dutch.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but then I think around the time they were making this, James Cameron was making Terminator 2, so Arnold obviously had to focus his energies on that as opposed to this.
Do you think do you think maybe it was because of the cop element is why it didn't really appeal that much, because people kind of looked at it like, because during the 80s and 90s, buddy cop movies kind of blew up as a genre. They were parodied and all. Do you feel like maybe that was a reason too? Just another, they thought that maybe it was like a buddy cop movie maybe, and they just threw a Predator in, so it's like, that's stupid?
I don't know. That might be a reason, but you know what? I'm somebody who I like gritty cop films.
I do too.
So it's like,
but I'm just curious, like,
me at all about
would you think, like, everyday moviegoers, though, do you think that was the logic behind it?
Could have been. Maybe, like, people just... I kind of feel like people just wanted a repeat of the first one. They probably wanted Arnold Schwarzenegger to be involved in this in some way, but... Well, and speaking of criticisms, our next movie review will be Alien vs. Predator. So, stay tuned for that review, and bye.